Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am so happy that we are on this particular podcast tonight. And we have a topic here that is very sensitive, very dear to my heart as one of the species that God created called men. And tonight we'll be talking about addiction. I've got a little title here that's called A Hidden Chains, Men, Addiction, and the Road to Restoration. So, welcome again to Men in a Mission. I'd just like to start off by saying many men are suffering silently. Some wear suits, some preach sermons, some lead homes, others coach teams, some run businesses, and some actually sits in churches on Sabbath and on Sunday, but battle with it with addictions. And this addiction actually destroys our soul, our family, and our purpose. So tonight we're going to dive a little bit into some of these addiction habits. And I just like to start off by telling the definition of what addiction means to me, and then I'm going to go around the room and ask each one of you can give me the Webster Dictionary, can give me your personal approach to addiction. But what I've came up with is addiction is a repeated bondage and a compulsive dependency. It actually lets you lose control of yourself and is an attempt to medicate pain, whether the pain is spiritual, emotional, mental, but is a form of kind of soothing the pain as much as you can. So as we kick off tonight, I love to tease my friend, Brother Story. I want to kick off with you. What do you think this addiction is all about?
Well, for me, my definition of addiction is to be controlled by something that you can't get a grasp of controlling. So it causes you to do things that under normal circumstances you would have the power to refrain from doing. So that's
Okay,
what I would say addiction is to me.
got you, got you. Brother Robinson, what do you think? This addiction context here, what is all about?
The way I look at it, it's like a behavior, like you already said, a loss of control, a behavior that you've lost control of it. Like it's for lack of a better word, like a habit that you've been so used to it that you've lost control that now it becomes like a coping mechanism where you
Mm,
can't do without it. So it's kind of like I gotta have something. I gotta have it without the control that you would is gone.
this call. Thank you. Thank Dr. Howard. What do you think? This control mechanism, is it from a spiritual context? Is it something that is physical? What is this definition, you think, of
Good
addiction?
night, good evening, everyone. In my opinion, addiction can be both something that has control over you and something that you also can choose to do, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. Because as Christians are assume that we sin, and some of us
Mm,
voluntarily every day. So on that perspective, I would say it is not just something that has control over you, but
right.
sometimes making decisions
Wow.
over a 20-year, 30-year period. And I
Wow.
like the example of sinning to say that that's a choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So are we addicted to sinning?
Wow.
Question for thought.
So it has as long effect controlling, right? So I hear the
Yes.
word controlling coming out, Pastor Joseph. So what men are conditioned to believe? If we have this control context, what is in the psyche that we're conditioned to believe that we can control this thing? Because we have kind of touched on the base that it controls us, but I think there's a part that we think we can control it. What do you think?
I think part of the psychosis of the
Mm,
addiction is the delusion that you could control it at any time. And I think that's part of the reason why addiction is as powerful as it is. Because most people who are addicted don't realize they're addicted. They think they're in control, but
right.
the habit or whatever it is actually in control when they are not.
So there's is it safe to say then an addict have control over the addiction?
Well, I think part of what makes it an addiction is that you lost the control over it.
Got you.
It tried to control you instead of you. But what is deceptive about it is sometimes you don't realize that you have lost control. You still think
Mm,
that you're in control when you're not really in control. A lot of addicts will say I could give it up anytime I choose, but they really can't, you know.
Yeah.
Got you. So, why is it tough for men? It seems like women, if they find themselves in addiction, they might want to run for help. Why is it so difficult for us?
I think
think-
part of the reason would be, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Go
brother.
ahead, Alistair.
Go ahead, Alistair.
Yeah, part of the reason would be because to say I'm not in control is to declare that there is a weakness in you.
Yeah.
Mm,
We're programmed mentally to believe that we're the leading factor, you know, especially in our households or in society. So
Right.
a man has to be strong, a man has to be firm, a man has to be leading.
Right.
And when you say that something is leading you around, then what you're saying is I'm not effective as a man. So I think that's part of the problem.
that's part of it. That's awesome. It's like don't cry. You know, as I told you, I think on this podcast I mentioned my dad. I never saw my dad cry until a couple months before he passed away. So he learned to cope with certain stresses that he had. So one of the things, we don't cry, and they said Ella's story that we can handle things, we can control things. So the addiction, we can control it, you know. So what are some of the root cause, Elder Robinson? What do you think some of the root causes are?
It depends. Like I said, sometimes, let's say, for example, it could be an injury that, if you're talking about drugs, it could be an injury that it happened to you, and then you are being given painkillers, and you become, as a way of relieving that pain, and then you become hooked up on that issue. For example, just use myself. I recently had an MRI, and because it's a back pain. So my
Right.
doctor was like, "Hey, I need to give you medicine." I was like, "I don't really like using medicine." But like, yeah. And as a matter of fact, the medicine I have, one of the effects she was saying that is that you could become addicted to it.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, because it's so the way you are describing your pain, then for it to be relieved, that means I have to give you a greater dosage. But as you're doing that, you become hooked up to it. And going back to what Pastor was saying, I could, let's say, if I became addicted to that medicine, to me, I could just be seeing as if, hey, I'm taking the drugs without realizing that the drug itself is taking over me, because to me, I'm just concentrating on the
And the pain.
pain, but yet the drug is doing something else on the other side. So one of the thing I can say is, yeah.
So let's talk about that pain, Dr. Howard. Let's talk about that pain. My friend Brother Robinson just mentioned it's a physical, it's different, you know, the operation and so forth. But what other pain, doctor, can I give you remedy for that become addictive?
Repeat?
What other remedy? It is not every time you give a pill to hurt a pain, right? So what are the pain that we men feel that a pill just can't help?
All right. So you can have the pain from in the home relationship. You have the pain when you and a spouse have an argument, or a family member have an argument.
Nice.
You have the pain from work, the pain from the perception of what a man's supposed to be. If you're not meeting those, you're supposed to have a home for your family. But own a home versus renting per se.
Right.
You're supposed to have a nice car versus a used car. So if a person does not have that mental toughness, or hasn't read or hasn't been advised outside of the norm of society to say, hey, you don't have to be like a prisoner to these established thoughts of what a man is supposed to be, but there are other ways you can be a man without so burdensome on you psychologically. Because I think most time as men, we don't, our society, I am in Jamaica, you are in America, but for the most part, our society don't really make space for men to have real conversations. For example, women will sit down and talk about their problems, 3-4 of them openly.
Right.
While men will sit down whole day
We don't do that.
All of them are all of us suffering, and we never
Right.
say a word about anything that we're suffering, even though all four of us are suffering,
Right.
right? So I
Right.
think that is one of the main things. As men, we don't know how to even express ourselves, because crying is not the only way of expressing yourself.
Right. Talking, you talking because
Talking.
we can have traumas that unresolved. We can be depressed. We can have anxiety. We can have a sense of abandonment. A low self-esteem, things like that. Yeah. A good friend of mine, I call him a friend because I knew when he just started. Some of you know Golden Cross Baker, right?
Yes, yes.
And you know what happened to Lowell? I mean, I call him Lowell because when he I'm the one that actually, encourage him and tell him I show him how to open the first store in Goodinland and all that stuff. And I was sad when he committed suicide, and I reflected on the fact when I first saw him, and he was so stressful in opening the first store. And when his mother and father died, I heard that they were like the mechanism to kind of keep him strong. And so it's sad that he couldn't have an outlet. That's what I was sad about, that he didn't have an outlet to talk, as you said, the stress.
I think the outlet is one part of it.
Okay.
But I also think that I'd say the rewiring of the mind in how you view yourself as a man or as a human being. Because for me personally, my way of rewiring is reading. If I
We're gonna
see
get to don't get to that. You're doing the resolution yet. We're gonna get to that.
okay,
We're gonna get to the. But I'm glad you jumped in. We're gonna kind of identify some of the. I'll call it the 5 top addiction that men suffer from. There's
So,
much more, but anyone want to guess? Give me one of the top 5. I have 5 here, but I'm quite sure you guys. Go
well,
ahead.
before we go on to this, you were asking the question of other types of addiction besides pills.
Yes.
And
Yes.
tomorrow will be my first day back to work. I injured my foot, so I've been out maybe about 5 weeks or whatever,
Yeah.
And while I was out, I do 101 different things, things that I can't do while I'm at work. And so more prison ministry, more Pathfinders and Adventurers stuff, preparing some sermons, reading some stuff. I do a lot of stuff. But
Right.
I was thinking about it. It's not necessarily the norm, because when people are out from work, men and women, they tend to like the fact that they don't have to do anything. So they become addicted to the laziness. And it's hard to get them to re-engage into absolutely anything. And the doctor kept asking me, when did I want to return to work? And I was like, as soon as possible, even
Whoa.
if I had to go with crutches or whatever,
You want to
eat
go back?
food or whatever, because I like to be active and engaged. But and we see it in the United States a lot, where you got people that you can't get off of the couch or out of their house.
That's true.
And they're addicted to being lazy, which is a terrible addiction.
I'm going to unpack that one. Addicted to be lazy. Wow. That's a good one. That's a good one. So give me one of the top 5. What do you think one of the top 5 addiction that we have? Anyone?
We have pornography as well.
Pornography. Yes, I have that. Pornography and sexual addiction. Okay. It says
alcohol.
Okay, let's unplug that first. It said one of the fastest growing addiction among men, exposed as at adolescence, and it wired your brain to the dopamine, and I'm saying it right, pathway is similar to drug addiction, that coming back to it. And it's talk to me a little bit about that. What do you think about pornography, and what does it really do to the family?
In terms of from a medical perspective, in terms of pornography, it affects the mind. Yes, it does hijack the dopamine pathway. So the dopamine pathway is what basically makes you feel happy.
Wow.
Right? So if eventually, let's say use the word software. Let's say a person starts out, or a male starts out with software, just make it in a magazine and so forth.
Yeah.
You might find that as the years go by, he needs something more to stimulate him, to make him get happy or aroused or get an erection. And you'll find that the years go by, he has to go to more extreme methods. So now he move to watching porn on the computer. Now this person is married now, 10 years into this habit. So he moved from the computer. His wife can't satisfy him in the bed because of what his mind is exposed to. So now he believes now that
He has to go
again,
outside.
he has to go outside because again, we have the Instagram, we have basically porn at your fingertips now,
Right.
right? So before you know it, he's through the door, not even conscious, as we said, the control, not even really conscious that, hey, when I do this, my family
Suffers.
suffers. I will be destroyed if this comes out or
Right.
so. You find that that is one of the streamline effect of that porn addiction. It's
I
not
think
usually immediate like some other addiction that is really
it's
we
a
said they are
creeping.
immediate, but
Yeah.
when it does, as Jamaicans say, when it comes home to roost,
Right.
when the final, song is sung, it's gonna be very disastrous.
Thank you, Doc. What about womanizing in that context, Pastor Joseph? Does womanizing come into that context?
I think so. Actually, it can be an addiction.
Okay.
Sometimes men womanize us because of certain self-image deficiencies that they have, or certain trauma they may have suffered, which cause them to value themselves through the woman that they're able to conquer. And it can become an addiction where they need that in order to feel good about themselves. And it could lead to very disastrous choices.
So it's not something that the person actually maybe want to do, but certain behaviors or certain companions and friendship and association might lead you into that. All right, so I'm going to jump to another one just because of time. I'm going to may come back to this. Give me another one, gentlemen. Anyone? What's another one of the top 5 you think?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Yep, that's one of the top 5. All right, good. I don't like this one at all because my grandfather died he was a drinker, and he one day coming home fell on the sidewalk, hit his head, bled to death, and it took a month for them to find him. Luckily, the morgue was on strike in Jamaica, and they were looking around for him, and they decided to find him, and there he was. And my other grandfather drank a lot. Thank God he found the Lord Jesus Christ. My dad drank for soothing and entertainment, and I personally didn't like it. And I thank God when I found the Adventist faith that they don't drink, because I remember going to school, half a beer, I was always the next day to driveway, because half a beer I was drunk, so I kept one bottle in my hand. So alcohol, talk to me, Brother Robinson. What do you think?
Yeah, and alcohol is another way. It's another way of us as men, a way of escape. Like, say I lose a job and I can't face my family. I can't tell my family. It's kind of like that, like doctor was saying. It's a way where I can start slower. Today I grab 1 drink, 2 drinks, but my brain is telling me that I'm not a man anymore because I cannot provide for my family. So now I want to relieve um that stress to say, okay, I want to feel better for a moment. So because once I drink, because the idea is if I drink, then everything will go away. But
No
then
problems gone.
but once the drink goes away, once it metabolizes, I need another one so that I want to feel the same way I was feeling. So now that becomes a cycle that you continue doing it, and then because you continue doing it, your body now becomes at a place where you cannot do without it. And because you can't do that now, you become that person where you're over dependent on it. Now it's not just about you as a person, but it affects you physically, and then it starts affecting the people that you are part of. Yeah.
So Brother Story, does Christian Adventist Christian drink?
Do Adventist Christians drink?
Yeah.
Well, I've caught quite a few drinking.
You caught quite a few.
I've caught quite a few drinking. I even had an elder that was at a church at one time, and on his social media thing, he was having a birthday party for somebody visiting him from his home country, and they're holding up their bottles of rum. And I was like,
but it was a social gathering, by the story. That's an exception. No?
Yeah. But I it's amazing to me because I didn't grow up Adventist. But when I went through the baptismal course in the process, I
Right.
made a vow to what I would give up and what I would do and how I would act.
Right.
And to let someone cause you, because, and it's not really to someone, it's your weakness, but they cause you to go back on the vow that you made to God when you decided to be a part of his family is always ridiculous to me. And like I mentioned, it was a birthday party, but you know, birthday parties, football games, going to the beach, a family cookout, all the alcohol is there. So now what you do is you make a connection with the event with the alcohol. So you create a habit that because I'm at a football game, I must have a drink in my hand.
Mm.
Because I'm at the birthday party, I have to let them mix me a drink. And it's habit forming. That's where the addiction part comes from. Because when you watch TV, you see every fun looking event. They have a
As
cooler
liquor. As
and alcohol. So
yeah.
they make you think that you can't have the event if you don't have the alcohol
All right.
with
So,
it.
Brother Story, you're from the U.S., right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm gonna jump on my Caribbean friend here, Pastor Joseph. Pastor Joseph, it's okay to put it in your cake.
For flavoring. That's what I was told.
That's what you're still. Go ahead, Elder.
It's not drinking just for flavoring.
Well, I almost got drunk at an event. I got one slice and I
Yeah.
took a bite, brother. I just sit down. I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
My day was done. I told you I can't drink to half a bit
Yeah.
of drugs. I imagine tasting a piece of cake that was laced inside and outside. Okay.
Mm.
Talk to us,
Uh,
Brother Joseph, about
I
this.
went
How
to
do we work with
I
that?
went to a Jamaican funeral recently, and I had a similar event. I was offered a piece of fruitcake, and I love Jamaican fruitcake. And the thing was laced with alcohol. Yeah.
Mm.
But unfortunately, as Brother Story was saying earlier, we
Yeah.
have bought into the lie that in order for you to have a good time, there must be alcohol present.
Mm-hmm.
And the devil has beat that into us in every commercial we see, every movie we see, every social media event we see, that you can't have a good time without
With
alcohol.
alcohol. Yeah.
And the alcohol ultimately becomes addictive.
Sure.
And then we get to the point where we need that some people need alcohol just to maintain a sense of
Just to
normalcy,
keep. Yeah.
just to keep their head above water. And it's in everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So what about those that I'm going to tease my doctor from Jamaica now? I was told that some medicine have enough alcohol in it.
I'm not really sure of that.
Well, they have something called NyQuil.
Okay. Well, usually you have some medication. NyQuil is more for drowsy to help people to sleep and stuff. I don't know of
Gotcha.
alcohol content.
Right.
In Jamaica, we do use regular rubbing alcohol when a person is sick, as well as we do use
So
rare
come on,
medication.
doctor. Come on. Stop a minute. You talk about rubbing alcohol, right? There's
No,
white
no.
rum. There's white
That's
rum, and
not
there's
what
rubbing alcohol. Which one do you use?
no, that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
For example, I travel to rural communities to do medicine. I'm a traveling doctor,
Right.
right? So you can be in situations where a person might be poor, where they use alcohol as medication, like
Right.
literally to revive a person or so forth.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Which is rare and never, it is rum,
Rum.
right? That
Yep.
does health, right? So
Yep.
from a medical point of view, we do accept it in the confines of helping a person life and death or just illness and so forth, and as natural remedy. But in the context of consumption for just for leisure, then
Right.
that is a total no.
I appreciate you mentioning that because we can get ridiculously fanatic on this topic. Okay. I can say for once at the age of 2, white rum and busy saved my life.
Okay, yes.
Okay, because I drank about a pint of Cursinile. And my great grandmother at the time, they had the busy and white rum, and she gave it to me, and I vomit out the thing, and they were able to get me in time to the doctor and do their thing. So medicinal as in everything else, it's okay. But I agree with the process, Elder Story. We're not talking about entertainment. Entertainment is out of the, don't confuse the both. So I'm glad we kind of touched on that, Doc, and I'm glad how you mentioned it, that it is used for medicinal purposes, but not this entertainment thing as an excuse. And Brother
No.
Joseph, Elder Joseph, I can't deal with a rum cake either, my friend. So we gotta figure out how
I'm
to.
out by myself then.
Yeah. I'll bring enough water. So, gentlemen, we have a few minutes. What are there are about two more quickly? What are the other two you think? And Elder Story touched on one, and I don't want to steal his thunder. He kind of crept into it, but I'll start it with W. It starts with W and end with K.
Just what I was about to suggest is that Elder Story mentioned laziness. Can
Yes, sir.
work not also be an addiction?
That's exactly what I have here as number
Yes.
5. Yes.
Amen.
Yes, it can be.
Yeah. And I found myself there when I was reading my research here. I saw myself as a young man growing up in this. And when I looked at it, it said active for success, money, status, achievement. You know, when you come from certain environment of your life, not that Jamaica is a poor country, it has a variety. But I was born in a poor situation, grew up in a poor situation. And I remember at the age of 9, I said to myself, I would never want to be poor. Poor is not good. As a matter of fact, I equate poor with sin. That's how much I don't want poor, because poverty, you lose all dignity at times with poverty. And so I strive for the rest of my life not to get there, and became successful in everything. But the reality was, when God asked me to go to the seminary, I had to give that up to do that. So, but there was a learning curve. You follow me? So let's talk a little bit about this overwork, gentlemen. Some of us, maybe all of us. So, Brother Robinson, but what do you think? This overwork context here.
Yeah, I think the way God designed us, God is a God of balance. In everything,
Yes,
if you overdo it, it becomes dangerous. And I want to go back to what I think it was the doctor when he was saying, addiction has to do with sin. You can start this way, like you're talking about work. What becomes is because you are so focused on, like you're saying, I want to be successful.
yeah.
But how do you define success in that context? So if you're so focused, say, I need more money, you find that, like, especially in these days, let's say I say, okay, I want to get 1 million. By the time I get 1 million, inflation is so high, and that 1 million is not enough. So now because my goal is just focusing on that, I find that I'm neglecting the people that I'm working for, in the sense, or or the life that God had designed me. So maybe God might be calling me to serve Him in a certain capacity, but because my mind is so focused and say, hey, if you don't work, if you don't do this, you're not gonna lose. You're gonna lose the money. So now, if God is calling me to serve Him, I might start weighing the two things, saying, okay, what's the benefit of serving God or going to work, and how does that benefit me? I'd rather go to work and do that rather than going and working for God. So yeah,
Yeah. I
balance is
thank you. I
needed.
thank you on that. You're talking, and I'm seeing myself. Thank God He pulled me out of that foolishness. But my kids suffered. My kids didn't spend all the time I needed with them in the early years. Thank God, God revealed I've been doing a lot of that now. But yes, that overworking thing and trying to make that achievement. You live in a beautiful home and you're looking across the street. You don't want a $500,000 house anymore. You want $1 million house now. You just keep. And it's like, when will it stop?
So can I ask a question?
Go ahead, sir.
Is it sinful, looking at it from a spiritual perspective,
Right.
for us to get our value, our self-worth, our sense of fulfillment from our careers and work and finances instead of from God?
Anyone want to take that on?
I don't know.
I was thinking about. Where you going,
Dr. Howard, you want to go ahead?
No, man, can go ahead. I'll go after.
Okay, Brother Story.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and it's not bad to have pride in your work,
Right.
because especially if God gifted you with the skill so that you could show the glory of the gift that He gave you. It's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But the first commandment is where the problem comes in, is thou shalt not have any other gods before me. And when you rise up and the first thing you think about is work, and you go to bed, the last thing you think about is work, and everything in between is about work, then what's the God that motivated you in the course of that day? And I think that we should not showcase for us the skill sets that God gives us with whatever career we take. Definitely show that God is good to us and he didn't just leave us a blank slate. He put something in us. But don't let that something that he put in us what we're all about. You know,
Right, right.
let us
Don't
stay
let
all
that be
about.
the center of your security, for lack of a better word. Don't make that be secure. Thank you, brother Story. I really, really appreciate that, brother Howard. You're going to say something?
Yes, I was gonna say that well, you asked if it was a sin,
Yeah.
Brother David. Um, I don't think it is a sin, because it says the addiction element
Mhm.
can make anything simple, right? It says 6 days shall thou labor and do all thy work. So work is a natural, is almost a part of the commandment. It's there that we
Yes.
must work. And it
Yes.
tells us that we must work 6 days. So being addicted to laziness, we know clearly that is a sin because that is not a part of the
Not
commandment,
a part of the commandment.
right?
Okay.
It says
Right.
six,
Right.
as Adventists, I think sometimes we preach a lot about the 7th day, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Sabbath, which I'm not taking anything away, but the commandment does say
You
also,
got to
six
work.
days shall thou labor, right? That
Right.
is a part of the commandments, right? I
Right.
think it is not, I don't think it is a sin, but I think it can be very dangerous.
Right. Yeah. It is not a sin. I've studied
Right?
this very, very deep, and you're right, Doc. It's not a sin, but it
But
can be dangerous.
it
Yeah. It
can be
can be.
very
Yeah.
dangerous because
Exactly.
I think when it comes on to working, even me as a young man, I grew up with a father who works very hard, round the clock, right? So I think we get that as brothers, I think we get that work ethics from him. We
Mm-hmm.
grow up seeing it and we grow up working very hard, right? But one of the things that I am trying to do is to ensure that whatever I have in this life, that I can point to it and say, God gave me that. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't work, but
Right.
I can know that whatever I worked for,
That
it
was a
was
reward of your labor.
it, it was not just the reward of my labor, that is the
Mm-hmm.
one part, but I can know in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
meaning for myself,
Mm-hmm.
that in a sense, we put it in Jamaican term, me and God sit down and have a conversation, and
Right.
then decide the boss, this me the gear. So now
Right.
because of my strength, let me get
Right.
it. It
Is
is
a cooperative approach.
yeah. So I
I,
try to live life that way.
yeah.
So it also helps you to be aware that you remember you have a family, so you might be pushing it, and you have to
Right.
pull back a
And you
little.
got to pull back.
And yeah,
I wanted to spend the last 5 minutes on two things, two areas. One, how does this addiction separates us from God, right? So, is it safe to say the addiction replaces worship? Is it safe to say addiction replaces comfort and identity? And it's actually, instead of worshiping God or running to God, we tend to sometimes run to this addiction. Is that fair to say that?
yeah. I can do. I speaking. Well, my answer to the question. I had written out a little schematic where I wrote the word addiction, then
Mm-hmm.
an arrow. Addiction leading to dependence.
Mm-hmm.
And most addiction end up you being dependent on something, someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then that now leads to an addition to your identity, who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So before you know it, it becomes the identity that person that becomes a part of you. So the drinking and hiding your problems that becomes a part of you. So any problem you get, you drink and tuck it underneath somewhere. So it becomes a part of your identity. Dependence by itself is not a bad thing because if we depend on God,
Mm-hmm.
more than likely we'll be strengthened. While if we
Right.
depend on stuff here, right, the alcohol, we depend on the pornography to let us feel good. We depend on our work. So
Right.
when we work hard today and we feel good and this become a dependence, then it
Right.
becomes a weakness because
So
you will find that. Mhm.
yeah. So it's almost like what Brother Stowe was saying. Then you can be at home and your laziness becomes a
Mhm.
dependency, right? So wherever that focus is, that where it comes. So, gentlemen, we have about. Go ahead, brother Joseph. Sorry.
Let me just add briefly. I think one of the problems with addiction also is that the devil could use it as a means of separating us from God.
Amen.
Yes.
Sometimes the addiction can make us feel that we don't deserve to have a relationship with God.
Very good point.
The Bible calls the devil the accuser of the brethren. See, the devil will bring you into doing things that dishonor God. And after you dishonor God, then he will tell you God no longer loves you.
Love
God
you.
no longer wants to have a relationship with you. Sometimes our addiction will stop us from having devotions and having prayer with God because we think God no longer wants to hear our prayer because of the addiction. And it separates us from God. Our sins can sometimes separate us from God.
Yeah, you know, as you said that, I remember at the seminary, I heard you see a hand. One of my teachers said to us that the guy or gal that goes to the party on Friday night, the club on Friday night, that's the one need to go to church on Saturday. Go ahead, Brother Storr.
Yeah. You know, and the thing where we open up with where we talked about addiction is something that controls us. We're not in control of.
Right.
And you know, I was looking at Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. It says, no man can serve two masters, for he either will hate the one and love the other, or else he would hold to the one and despise the other. And that's exactly what addiction does. You don't have time for God because you have to get to your next crack
Fix.
or
Your next
or
fix.
your next fix or your
Right.
next bottle of alcohol, a case of beer, or you have to get to work, so you don't have time to do devotion in the morning, because if you do the devotion in the morning,
You're going to miss
you're not
out
going to
work.
get to work on time.
Amen.
So that addiction always tries to take the main place, the main place, and it will become the master when it does that.
When it doesn't,
And
yeah.
Otherwise, it's not an addiction.
Right. If it doesn't become the master, it's not an addiction. So,
Yeah.
Brother Robinson, I'm gonna give you some names, right? And tell me what was these individuals' addiction. Samson. Yeah.
I would say pride and sexual pride, sexual. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
mainly I would say
Yes, sir.
sexual.
Look.
Yeah,
Yes,
sexual.
sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Yeah. Why not? One down. Solomon.
Solomon was more of a pride. I would say pride.
Pride. But what pulled him into pride? What really pulled him there? Yeah. This is a guy that had a lot of
Women too, right?
yes, sir.
So he's in the sexual category too. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I
Sexual.
can't even deal with one wife. I don't know this boy deal with 100. You know, I don't
Yeah,
want to
I know.
know.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
But and I'm not even putting the concubines into it.
Yeah, no, that's too much.
That's too much.
Yeah.
What about Noah? What was Noah's problem?
Noah drinking was it
Yeah,
the
man.
problem?
Boy drink. Boy drink. I guess he celebrated after the victory of the ark, right,
Yeah,
Brother
yeah,
Storr? That was a celebration. That was one of those parties. Right? What about Judas?
Judas was money, success,
Money.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, work.
yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And the last one was I have here the prodigal son. What do you think was his problem?
The prodigal son, I would say pleasure in many categories. So yeah, he was just out there.
So this is showing us that even if you're a person in church that began by saying you were the suit to sit in the pulpit, you know, each one of us may carry with us a level of addiction. Okay? Let's just be honest with ourselves, because one of the things with Alcohol Anonymous, I went through a program of that. I wanted to become early on when I was learning how to do help certain men in a men's group. They took us through this alcohol, and one of them is that you must really admit that you're weak over it. That's one of the first steps. Don't act as if, you know, I grew up in a womanizing environment, my dad and his friends, and I don't want to be a part of that. So I do have a friend that's a womanizer. And a guy that's a womanizer, I'm like, I don't have nothing to do with you, man. You know, because I've seen the result. So what are some, as we close off, give us some steps, gentlemen, of how you get this healing. And I just gave one. Being honest with yourself. You know, say, hey, I have this problem. Alcohol Anonymous said that's the first thing you do. Accept. What else do you think we need to do? Anyone?
Birds of a feather. There's a birds of a feather flock together. So I
Yes.
think you have to assess also. One of the next steps is to assess also who is around you, to see
Yes.
based like, similar to what you said, if by association. Because a lot of what we do sometimes is just based off association with our person. You know, people choose they would carry out, boy, I'll pour out it. They talk, and 3 person decide they want to turn doctor down.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, want to turn doctor too. And then when you reach there, you realize, oh, this,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
not fair. I left a billionaire friend years ago because of that. He took me to Canada and he went to his woman and he has his wife. When I came back, that was it for me. And the guy was
So,
paying me serious money. I'm like, I ain't going around you. Okay. Give you another one, gentlemen. We have 2 minutes to go. What is
I
another
think
step?
I think another step, as you said, you have to admit that you have a problem, that you need help, and then find somebody who could hold you accountable. Find
That's the
somebody
word.
who you trust who could
That's the
hold
word
you
I'm looking
accountable.
for.
You know.
Give me 2 more. Accountability.
Yeah, another one I think.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, I was
Yeah.
gonna say another one is to avoid the place or the situation.
Yes,
Like
sir.
if you know that if you find out that okay, I'm addicted to porn, avoid
Right.
staying in places where you're gonna be enticed into doing that.
Yes.
Or if it's alcohol, avoid going to
A
places where
bar.
alcohol is a place where you're gonna. So yeah.
Yep. Yep.
the,
And
the
better
kind of
story.
one,
Yeah, yeah. Mine tags along with the accountability, and it's declaring who's in charge of your life. So the declaration is I'm addicted to God. So you say you're
Oh, wow.
addicted to God, and once you make that declaration, then you back it up by doing what the Bible says: pray without ceasing. So now
Amen.
you're in constant communication with God, and it's all right to be addicted to God. But imagine if you say, I got to spend all my time with God. Who's that going to upset? It's not going to upset God any.
Right.
You decide to spend all your time with Him.
So
declare an addiction for the one that you should be addicted to.
yeah. So what that step is called? They said replace the addiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Replace the addiction. Replace it with God. And my friend here, my new friend here, Dr. Howard, therapy and medical support. Do not a lot of time folks think we can, and we men, I just gotta admit it, women is quicker to get therapy than us.
and I think with therapy and medical support, I am kind of uh, on the river on the bank where it's concerned, because a lot of, especially with addiction, a lot of the medications, or medications can be a
Addict
bit
himself.
addictive,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like putting down one to get another.
Sure.
But I understand the role that they play, right? Yes, women are usually more forthcoming in coming in to get counseling and therapy and so forth.
Yeah.
I think in terms of men, again, the society plays such a big role. The subconscious mind plays such a big role on how a man views himself,
Mm-hmm.
right? In those situations, you find that they prefer go to the bar to
Right.
to talk
And then
about
good. Yeah, psychiatrists,
than
psychologists
a psychologist. I
are
think a lot
counseling.
of it has to do with our approach, even as men in the church, our approach.
Right.
Because if we actually approach men from a Jacket and type point of view, they're not going to open up.
No,
I
no,
think
they're not going to do
how
that.
how how we approach is important. For example, at my church, I read. I read a lot outside of medicine. Both I try to read mostly Christian, but sometimes I do read non-Christian books to get the information that I need
Right.
from the book, right? And I read on relationship because I want to have a good relationship with my wife. I read on communication because I want to be a better communicator with my wife and my child, and patience and so forth. So usually at church, for example, when I will speak to persons,
I'm going to give 30 more seconds, Pastor Elder. 30 seconds.
all right, just in the regular speaking, I try to always recommend a book. Sometimes I'll buy it
Yes.
and give them it as a gift, and you'll find that
Nice.
they do actually read, and that starts opening
Relationship there.
avenue to start a conversation. And you find that when that conversation really starts, you realize how much stuff are underneath. So with the young persons, I will take that approach. I'll buy them a little book to just start and say, read this about that problem you talk to me about and tell me what you think. And then it open, because I always tell persons that sometimes for me personally, a book, the dirty job that we don't want to do in terms of sometimes pointing out a person's problem by giving them a book to read.
Right.
The author does the job for you, so you don't have to say you are an addict.
Right.
If you say just read this chapter, they say, boy, so this chapter is really about me, that or so and so. Oh, you pick it up. Yeah, man, you
Yeah.
pick up on your tribes and you find the conversation
So
come up.
basically, you're saying it's a form of accountability by helping them in that
Yes.
context and
But
moving ahead.
we
Gentlemen,
don't
I'm gonna
point in the
stop us because we're over time. I just want to close off by thanking you all for this wonderful, wonderful topic. I know we can dive deeper, and I hope we get a part two. But I want to close off with this: that the strongest man is not the one who hides his weakness. Okay, is the strongest man is the one who is confronts his weakness and seek help for that. So on that topic, I want to thank you very much for being here. I want to say again, if we see the need for a second part, let's do that. But bye for now. And those of us that will enjoy this podcast, please put your comments. And we are learning together, and we want to know more about this topic. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.